Welcome to Plastic Surgery Secrets Talk, the podcast where we go behind the scenes of everything interesting in plastic surgery and the aesthetics world. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Spiegel.
I'm Dr. Tower.
And I'm Dr. O'Neill from the Spiegel Center just outside of Boston. We are excited for season 3 to continue.
So let's get started. Today, we're going to be talking about
the worst of the worst.
The worst of the worst. Fixing the, quote, unfixable. Things that have come in where we started to break a sweat, where your pulse rises, where you're like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? And it doesn't have to be ones that we've seen specifically to protect the privacy of the affected patient and doctor. It can also be ones that we know about that are enough to raise the hair on your head.
Well, what comes to mind, but what I really like, or not like actually, but goes along with this, like this whole like filler migration. Like, where did it migrate exactly? No, it stayed there.
Yeah.
And it was done there for a reason and a purpose. And if you haven't had fillers in 3-4 years, it didn't migrate. It's just that your skin and your own natural volume just kind of,
you changed.
Drifted.
Yeah.
You changed. So it didn't migrate anywhere. There's only one place it can migrate, right? Fillers.
And that's where?
And that's really in the lip. Like in the upper lip particularly, like some people will do just too much and then it's got to go somewhere. But other than that, I have not seen too much filler migration. I've seen it.
I was going to ask, do you do a lot of lip revision, like filler revision, dissolving, any of that kind of thing?
So that's interesting. I do. I tend to not love dissolving everything and let's start scratch. I mean, that's easy, right? Most people say, oh, let's just dissolve all of it and then start scratch.
Throw it out.
If you don't know what you're doing, that's what you're going to do. But if you know what you're doing, you can just dissolve enough where you can still have some of that remaining filler and, work
correction.
with it. Correction. I like that a lot more. And I think that shows that you're a good injector and know what you're doing, right? Rather than just
While we're on the topic of lips and scary things that people do with their lips, it just reminds me of, I don't think people do this as much anymore, but silicone injections. They used to be a big thing before a lot of the dermal fillers came out. And even like 10, 20 years later, when I was doing my fellowship, we would have to do lip reduction surgery, which is not fun for anybody involved. If you don't know what that means, it basically means opening the lip across the top or the bottom and actually removing, like you have to physically squeeze out or remove all of that silicone injection. So I'm glad people don't do that anymore, but it's still like comes up time to time. And that is like something, if you're listening to this, always stick with FDA approved injectables and never go like off market with that kind of stuff. It can just wind up horribly.
Yeah, Home Depot fillers are not made for your face.
It's a thing, and people get like addicted to them.
Speaking of silicone, one of the most famous quote unquote botched or plastic surgery gone wrong or plastic surgery abuse situations was somebody who recently passed, and it was she was known as the Catwoman from New York. Her real name was Jocelyn Wildenstein. I don't know if you remember her. She had a lot of plastic surgery, looked very, very unnatural, and people were quite fond of using her as an example of things that go wrong in plastic surgery or when a person can't see what's right. Now, having seen her over the years, she was a beautiful woman, and I think what happened with Jocelyn Wildenstein is that she got silicone fillers. There were a lot of reputable doctors in New York who recommended these things. Now, just because something is new doesn't mean it's good. And this microsilicone injection, she got it all over her face prior to fillers. And it probably looked great for a short while, but then silicone starts to create a reaction in a lot of people. And it can happen even 30 years later, and you can get these lumps and bumps and firm areas and deformities, which is what was happening with her.
And I want to just say, this is very different than the solid silicone implants that we use.
Completely separate.
Facial implants or breast implants that are also made out of silicone. The injectable stuff is like toxic to your
exactly right. And this is as different as a solid metal instrument versus liquid metal like mercury. I mean, they're not the same.
Yeah,
it's just a totally different product, and it behaves a different way. And Jocelyn Wildenstein had silicone, kind of clearly. It's evident based on how she looks. And then she had plastic surgery after plastic surgery after plastic surgery to try and remedy it. But some of the places she had this, you just can't
I can't think
not
of
going to happen.
I can't think of any trends that are like similar that I'm seeing today of like things that that are happening that people really need to avoid, at least on that kind of
Permanent
scale.
threads were not great for a while.
Okay.
Most of the threads are dissolving now, but I took out a lot of those. Threading in the
Barbed
face,
sutures in the face,
barbed
in the nose,
sutures
for
in the
example.
nose.
Yeah,
Exactly. We had to take one of those out of someone's nose recently. That was done in Mexico, I think, or Argentina, and the person did this, and probably not the best choice. And that leads me to the following question for the panel here, my esteemed colleagues. When things go wrong and get, quote, botched, and Paul Nassif, if you've trademarked that term or something, we use it with all respect, but if you have the term botched, you want to say what went wrong, what do you think led to these situations?
Okay, so I think one of the things about being botched, for lack of a better word, sometimes people don't know if they've been botched or not. And so this is something I've been seeing as people have been traveling internationally for surgery, and then they come back because they've had some procedure done. Could be a rhinoplasty, could be hair grafting, things that are popular in other countries. And then as they're going through the recovery process, all the insecurities start kind of popping up. And it could be a little bump on their nose, or something looks a little asymmetric, a little swollen. And they're going, was I botched? Did I make some crazy bad decision and fly halfway around the world for this surgery? Or is this just normal healing and they don't know? And part of the problem is they don't have someone there by their side to guide them. Or if they need a little steroid injection, they don't have anyone to turn to. So they wind up calling us up, and they'll come in and we can do a full analysis and evaluation and everything. And more often than not, I think the word botched can mean different things to different people. It could be what's a minor problem out of my eye. It could be a huge deal in the patient's eye. But these little things can become an issue, especially if their surgeon's not there to help them out and sort of guide them through what to do about it afterward. And so I think one of the reasons we're seeing like these botched things or questionably botched things is just people traveling a lot for surgery.
And just being uncertain.
That's why, and that's why when people come here from far away, which happens all the time, we do as much as we can to lower those barriers to having follow-ups and making sure that they're basically getting that same level of care halfway around the world as if they're here.
And we have a network of practices around the country that we can send people to for little checkups if necessary.
And we have amazing patient coordinators, so that it doesn't have to be all up to the surgeon, doesn't have to come back to you. They just contact their patient coordinator, and who sometimes answer those questions just so much better.
The other comment I would make is, we publish, or we put up a lot of posts of before and afters of revision rhinoplasties and revision facelifts and things like that. It doesn't always mean that the primary surgery went wrong or that there was anything bad that happened with it. If somebody had a facelift 10 or 20 years ago and their skin has become redundant and it's sagged more, just by definition that it's being done a second time, that makes it a revision. So a revision isn't always fixing a mistake. It could just be refreshing work that's been done previously. Same thing with rhinoplasty. You could have a good rhinoplasty result and want a better result. That can be a revision.
Or change your mind on what you would want.
Or you could have had a rhinoplasty 20 years ago and you broke your nose last week in a car accident, and now we have to revise work that's already been done. Those are all revisions, technically. So it may seem like there's a disproportionate amount of revision work happening, when in reality it's just things happen and
life goes on.
It's not always for mistakes. It's just we have to fix things.
And I think also there's a law of statistics here, which is if something is going to happen, if something is going to go well 99% of the time, that means that for every 200 of those you do, 2 times it's not going to heal great. So you're going to see things that occur, even when it's 99% safe. And I like to think about a gardener who puts a wall of trees, a whole row of trees along a road, along a country estate. And they got the trees from the same nursery. They dug the hole the same way. They watered it the same way. It's the same environment, same soil. 18 trees grow, 1 turns brown. What happened there? You see this all the time when you drive around looking at people's landscaping. No one knows. The person did it right. The landscaper didn't botch that tree. Magical forces, who knows? But the thing is that when you're paying attention and you're following, you can fix these things. You can see that tree starting to go south and you can fix it. Quickly, you can get the right things on. But once in a while, things do go wrong. And I think it's largely happens when somebody is reaching beyond their abilities, right? So you get, again, I talk a lot about airline pilots, and pilots get authorized to fly planes of certain power and size and configuration. So somebody who is Cessna certified shouldn't be flying a 747.
Mm-hmm.
It's just beyond their ability at this time. They can learn to do it, but if you had them take that plane up and fly to, Zimbabwe or something from Boston, it's going to be a rough journey. So you want to make sure that you're seeing people who trained the right way, really saw it, went through, full facial plastics fellowship, for example, for facial things.
What would you look for? You look for their qualifications, their credentials, board certifications.
That's right. You want to make sure that they have done the right residency, done the right fellowship, gotten the board certification, are comfortable with what they're doing, and ask them, have you done this before?
Yeah. And beyond that, you can do your research, look at if they have a photo gallery, look at their photo galleries, the kind of work they've done, what sort of results they get with, and even better, if they can find people who resemble themselves in your photo gallery.
That's right.
Where the shape of the nose might be similar to
and
what
see if they're sweating when you're talking about
it. and read the reviews too, because pictures only tell part of the story, but reviews tell about the whole process and the experience.
That's absolutely right.
We have some of our patient coordinators who have their own review sites now because they get so many reviews.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, you could get from Boston to Zimbabwe safely, and that's like the before and after, but was it a good flight?
That's right.
Yeah, was it good along the way?
Sometimes what happens, continuing on that, is that people will push the limit on what's appropriate in an attempt to do something new. And one of the things we're seeing this with is hair grafting and some rhinoplasty from Turkey, right? Because people will go in there and they'll say, I can get this Turkish hair grafting done, and I can get 6,000 hair follicles transplanted in a single day instead of having to do that over 2 or 3 sessions. But you need to ask yourself, why is the doctor in Turkey going to do 6,000 and nobody in the United States wants to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Is it that they're just so much better or faster? Or maybe they're just taking chances that your doctor stateside is not willing to do. And that's really what happens, because we see people who have been over harvested, have good hair on top, and too thin in the back all of a sudden. You're just trading problems.
I'm on social media, and some of the content that I get on my feed is clearly not results that happen in real life. Like realistically, some of these results are either photoshopped or
absolutely.
AI generated. Or
doctors in Asia do that all the time.
And the scary thing is AI generated content, I think, is going to be hard. It's going to be hard to tell what's real and what's not real.
I'm AI generated.
Yeah. And you look real to me. That's the crazy thing. I can't tell the difference.
You'd think I would have done a better job with my own AI generation.
So I guess my point in saying that is it could be really hard to know going into the future. And you have to use common sense, like when you're looking at this stuff to tell, because like you really don't want to wind up in a situation where you've got a bad result and then you got to fly home and you don't know what to do.
I see people all the time who saw famous internet doctors and they're disappointed with their results.
Yeah.
And I will show them how, if they position their face exactly right, the way the doctor is doing it on social media, they do have that result. But they're like, yeah, but when I'm moving around, it's not there. I'm like, yeah, neither of those
when I
people.
smile like this,
it's the same as the other ones.
My eyes a little bit.
If you just carefully position yourself, get the camera lens just right and the right filter, you can get the same result that you saw on the internet. So it's all a matter of finding people who are skilled, experienced, and going to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Look at is the patient got a lot of makeup on? Is the lighting totally different? It can be really hard to tell what's the surgical result and what's just good makeup and lighting, basically.
Well, that's a good point. That's why we put our step and repeat right behind the patient, so that the lettering, and when we put it together, I always teach my staff that if you're not sure, take a look at the step and repeat lettering, because an A has to be the same size A before and the after, so it all lines up exactly, and then your before and after is really accurate and correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we make sure that it's not going to be easy to fake photographs from us, and also not to steal it, because we found our own before and after photos on so many websites in the past.
Thank you for listening to Plastic Surgery Secrets Talk.
If you liked what you heard or want to get in touch, call us at 617-566-3223 or email us at info@drspiegel.com. That's the I before the E. And follow us on social media, always at Dr. Spiegel. Again, DrSpiegel, the